And just like that, we're going to go from this to that.
Stop it. We're not saying that on camera.
That's right. In this video, we're going to install Baja Design's ditch lights on our 2012 Toyota Sequoia. It's a pretty simple install. It's not going to take long. In fact, the sun is setting. It's 8 o'clock here in Washington, and I'm going to try and get all this done before nighttime. Here's everything you're going to need to install this onto your rig. First of all, you're going to need your ditch lights. We're running the Baja Design Squadron Sports, and these are really trick, custom Nitto Pit Crew X Baja Designs Johnnies. So stoked with the red hardware, the amber lenses, very excited about this. To control the lights, we're going to be running a Garmin Power Switch. We already have the Garmin Overlander control unit in our rig, and so that's going to save us a ton of wiring. And you can pair it not only with the Garmin Overlander, but you can also pair it with your phone, and you can pair more of these in conjunction with each other. So if we wanted to control more than 6 accessories, we could go all the way up to 24 accessories. And then finally, you're going to need ditch light brackets. These are from Rego Fabrication, I think. I'm not sure. As I said, this should be a super straightforward install. So enough talking, let's just dive right into it. We're going to have to pop the hood on the Toyota Sequoia and start wrenching. And where we're going to put our controller is right here on top of our fuse box. It's a great place for double-sided tape and the controller. This way, no matter what, I can always access it. I can add more to it. This is kind of a sturdy mount, but it doesn't need to be too sturdy. It just needs to hold on to the fuse box. And so we're going to clean this up right now, throw on some double-sided tape, and put the box on the fuse box. Well, it looks like double-sided tape's not going to work because there are raised protrusions on the back of the Garmin control unit. So I just put it on top of the box where I want it, and then I marked 2 holes. You can see one there and one there with a Sharpie. And literally I'm just going to drill holes in it and mount it with hardware. I have plenty of hardware in the garage and washers. The thing that's going to suck is if you do drill through this, you'll probably go through slots in your fuse diagram here, but hey, whatever, I'm still gonna go through it. So let the drilling begin. Alright, now that we got the Garmin control unit mounted to the battery box, nice black hardware, stainless, it won't rust, it looks cool, looks trick. Time to hook up the Garmin control unit. So you flip open this little tab here, releases the cover. And Garmin's really sweet. They have everything labeled. So here it says plus 12 volt. That means your power. Then on this one, there's a little, looks like a universal ground symbol, but there's also a ground on the box. So you know that's the ground. And so you're going to run this power to the power of your battery, and they include a cable for that. And then you're going to want to ground this out. I'm going to ground this out to the same ground as the battery just to make life a lot easier. But now when you're wiring up your lights, all you have to do is hook up a power cable to the box and then ground the lights wherever you want to ground them, which is going to be super helpful. That's the power cable that is included with the Garmin. And you can tell there's a small end that goes right to the Garmin, and down in here, which I have not hooked up yet, there's a big end with a giant fuse on it, so nothing pops or blows too much, and the wire is super thick. And so I'm going to run that to the hot, which is the positive of my battery, straight to the Garmin. And they also include a negative, which also has 2 different size connectors, a bigger one and a smaller one. The smaller one goes to the Garmin, and the bigger one's going to end up right there. Actually, before we keep going, I should disconnect the battery first. Now that we have our ground hooked up, it's time to pull the ground from the Garmin and install the ground cable to it. This Phillips head mount here makes life a lot easier. The ground is hooked up. It's there, nice and tucked away. I don't think I'm going to trim any of that slack because I really don't care. And it's to the ground strap of the battery. Now we're gonna remove this, which is telling you, hey, make sure you know that you're not gonna kill yourself. Basically it just says read the instructions. And then we're gonna pull this off. I think that's a 10. All right, that's nice and tight. Cool. Now we can work on connecting the positive to the battery terminal. So you can see we got everything hooked up, positive and negative. The pair button was blinking. It still is blinking just a little bit. And this should tidy up rather nicely. Look at that, so nice and tidy. Wires are nice and out of the way. And so now that we have the control box wired, let's move on to the actual lights themselves. All right, we have the ditch light bracket here and it says D on it. This seems like it's gonna be pretty hard to install. Like, hey, how does it go? I don't know. But so let me save you the trouble. With these specific ones, the way you install them is you go under the hood like so, and they mount to the hood mounting points right there. And then the ditch light stays out like that. And it's best to get someone to help you, because when you prop the hood up like this and you remove both bolts, the hood is gonna move. Oh, idiot. When you do the passenger side, the stupid nozzle for the hood windshield wiper sprayer gets in the way. So make sure you pull this, and that way you can pull the line out of the way. Otherwise you're going to be fighting this when you try to put this one back. But we put the ditch light brackets on, and let's see if the hood still closes. All right, so this is way off in terms of the line. See how this is really open and this is really tight. So we're gonna have to adjust the hood. When you do this, your hood will shift, so make sure you get the hood just right. So I'm gonna loosen that side, pull it down a little bit more, and it should be all good to go. Let's move on to hooking up the lights. There's a bracket here. There's a light with two ends for the bolts, one here and one there. And there's a nice little hardware kit. Baja Designs really goes above and beyond. There's even Loctite included on the hardware. All you got to do is take the smaller pieces of hardware, smaller bolts, bolt it through each side here, and then this goes to where your light would mount. The bottom nut is 14, the top bolt is 15. So we're just gonna get it in position here. Do the same thing on the other side and you're ready to start wiring them up. Right, these are the light connectors. I'll be needing those. Snip. And then I will not be using any of this. The good thing about the Sequoia is it has this cowl here, and to make sure this install stays clean, I'm gonna tuck the wires under this plastic cowl. Look at that. Super clean, huh? All right, we ran the wire underneath the cowl all the way to the natural opening here, and this is for like, it looks like some dash controls or whatever. But it was a nice opening that came out, and all I did really was just lift up the cowl and tuck it. So if you're looking to where you're going to run your wires for your ditch lights, just lift up the cowl and run it underneath that. You could hook this up to one of the slots in the Garmin here, and you could make your wires control your left ditch light or your right ditch light, or vice versa. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wire these in unison so the ditch lights turn on. No left and right channels for me. Now we have both of our wires, and the way I hooked up this one was I just tuck the plug all the way back into the fender liner here so it wouldn't get in the way of the hood closing. Gave myself some extra slack. Now I have the driver's wire and the passenger's wire meeting in some point that they can plug into the Garmin. Now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to remove this sheath here, remove this sheath, connect power to power, ground to ground, and then unify them into this and unify them into this ground over here. Super simple. So you're just going to watch me strip some wires, and then I should be able to connect them very shortly. All right, now that we're back in daylight again, I can show you everything I did to wire up the car. First and foremost, I use these 2-to-1 connectors. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these before, but they're pretty trick. You can have 2 inputs that come into here. These are both of the power supplies for both sides of the ditch lights, and then it comes into one power supply unit. And to install, super easy. You just lift up a tab, slide in the wire, and then lock down the tab. And I love these more than splicing or even butt-to-butt connectors, because you can quick disconnect and they can handle a lot of load, and they tidy up the wire pretty nice. I'm just gonna wrap that with electrical tape when I'm done. Moving on to the box. This is the hot wire for the ditch lights, and then I actually grounded out the ditch lights. It's hard to see here, but it's the same ground as the battery ground, and I ran everything in this fender. You may notice I have another wire here on the left when we were just talking about ditch lights. Well, that's because I went ahead and install the light bar too, because I'm going to go through the trouble of throwing on the ditch lights. I'm going to throw on a light bar too. One thing to note is always up the gauge of your wires. Here's a really cool feature of the Garmin Power Switch, and you can see why I upgraded the wire to 12 gauge wire just across the board. I had extra, so I put it on everything. But here, if I press ditch lights, you can see they're on, and it's telling me I'm pulling 3 amps from my battery. It's still making 12.5 volts, 12.4 now. So let's turn off the ditch lights, and the load on the system is down to 0 amps. But as soon as I hit the light bar, boom, we're at 19 amps. So definitely gonna have to upgrade the wiring on that. And so what I did was I just upgraded the wire for both. Also, I wanted you guys to see what it looks like during the day. Now that I've shown you the wiring, let me take you onto the inside and show you how all this is controlled from the driver's seat. This is the Garmin Overlander. It's just mounted on a quick little mount here. We can go to apps. We go to Power Switch, and you can see these are all my spots to control lights from the box inside the engine bay. You could turn on the light bar while we're driving here. We could turn on ditch lights. It tells me how many amps are on the system, 15 amps and 15.1 volts because the car's on. Again, we can remove this so the wife can hold this while we're off-roading together, so she could be co-pilot. It just works perfectly, and it keeps everything nice and tidy. Best part of all, when we're done using this, we could just take this with us, shut down the car, and nothing really is too flashy inside here. So now that you saw what it looks like on the inside, let's go back outside and show you what the lights look like while they're on. You can see the ditch lights looking great. Now the thing with the Sequoia is these Baja design Squadrons are pretty big, right? But the Sequoia is also a huge car. You can see some of my wire sheath that I have on the floor here because I just finished. But because the Sequoia is so huge, it makes the Squadrons actually look pretty small. I mean, they're so much smaller compared to the rearview mirror that they look tiny. But my favorite feature of this whole entire system is honestly this right here. Boom, ditch lights in my face, light bar, boom. And the reason why is when we're at camp, sometimes we just want to get up to use the bathroom really quickly, and I don't want to start the rig, and I need some spotlights or some scene lights to go pee. And so what better way than the wife and I to take our phones, turn on some lights so we have some scene lights to go to the bathroom, and then come back to the tent. We got the Garmin Power Switch for like 200 or 300 bucks used. We got the Garmin Overlander for 200 something used. So at 500, almost 600 bucks, we have a light controller for all of our Baja Designs lights, or whatever lights we use. We have a navigation, we have battery voltage meter, and we have an amp meter. That is fantastic. I don't think you can beat that. There's a lot of deals to be found on Craigslist and on Facebook Marketplace, and so that's why we went with this. Now, are there better systems out there? There's S-Pod, there's Switch Pros, there's even Project X. Sure, yes. But the reason why we went with what we went with is because it works really well, and we got a great deal on it. Also, if you don't want to do a wireless setup like I have, no wires going to the cab, no Bluetooth connectivity with your phone, There's what, Oxito or Oxbeam. They make those pads that you press, and those are great too. They work great. The only thing is you do have to wire a controller into your car, and that's kind of a little bit harder, but it's totally doable. Everything else works the same. So that's it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. We're gonna continue to prep the Sequoia as we get ready for Overland Expo PNW. And if you made it this far in the video, I'm going to show you a little preview of something we're cooking for the next episode, and it's going to be big. Big in many ways. Here we go. That's all I'm going to show you for now. We got a lot of work to do, and no time to do it. And if you want to support the channel, make sure you grab a Cool Guy Club t-shirt at nogoobersallowed.com. Only for cool guys. See you guys on the next one. Have a good one.